Hello everyone and welcome to Season 6, Episode 34 of Pro Wrestling's Top 50. I'm your host Travis McNeil, and today we continue our countdown of the top 50 matches of 2021 with match number 17 on our list, which is the match between CM Punk and Eddie Kingston from the AEW Full Gear event held on November the 13th of 2021. The feud going into this match was probably my favorite feud of all of 2021. It was short, it didn't go long, it didn't span multiple months. It was just this natural story and this great short program for Punk. Before when Punk came to AEW, I think everybody kind of expected, this feud with MJF, right? This natural feud. Punk, one of the best talkers ever, coming in as this big baby face. MJF, this young, brash, cocky, arrogant, great talker. That's this new young gun that's really been on the come up during Punk's absence from professional wrestling. It seemed like the natural feud. Punk made his debut, wrestled Darby Allin, incredible first match back for him, that I think, for me personally, put any, doubts or apprehensions I had about Punk, being in the game, and coming back to wrestling, completely threw him out the window. And this was great as Punk's kind of next program, where it was this short feud that got to a pay-per-view match that, had a lot of juice to it, a lot of steam to it. It gave Punk, a high caliber opponent that, is really over with the AEW fan base, and another great win, to bridge him to that MJF feud. And this was just another notch in the incredible belt of the incredible run that Eddie Kingston is on. The story here, I referenced it a little bit in Kingston's match with Bryan Danielson, which I talked about a few videos back on this countdown, where Eddie Kingston has been this wrestler that has been grinding through the independents for, the better part of a decade and a half plus now at this point. He's had these, slight brushes, with the big time. He had a WWE tryout that didn't go anywhere. He, had some appearances on Impact Wrestling that really didn't go anywhere. All of the big, big league, big name, independent promotions he's dabbled in, but for whatever reason has really never, went far in them. In Ring of Honor for years, he kind of seemed like he was outcasted from Ring of Honor. Oh, he's too fat. He's got his demons. He doesn't take wrestling seriously enough. He's got, baggy pleather gear. He's not the right fit for Ring of Honor. He finally came in, worked his rival Chris Hero, kind of got some momentum there, and they didn't really do anything with him. He kind of got brought back in years later and wrestled Kevin Steen for the title, and they didn't really do anything with him. PWG, he was brought in there for whatever reason, backstage stuff, involving him and Hero. He never really got to do much there. CZW, he made it to the world title, but again, feud with Chris Hero led to him, ultimately leaving, problems with John Zandig. He came back years later, never really did much. So even though he's appeared, everywhere there is to appear in the independents, really his legacy, was stuck in Chikara, and Chikara is a promotion. CM Punk main evented the first Chikara show ever, never came back. Comments on commentary through the years, of Punk about Chikara, not great. These were guys where Kingston was really starting his rise on the indies. It was when Punk was starting to wrap up on the indies before going to WWE. And Punk, would do commentary on all of these IWA Mid-South shows and, would kind of joke about stuff and, not take things seriously, during some of Kingston's matches. And, it basically builds this natural rivalry of all of this resentment that Eddie Kingston has built up for CM Punk. And on Punk's flip side of the coin, he's basically like, you were never good enough to hang with us, right? So you have all of this jealousy that, you say that we didn't do things the right way and help bring you up, throughout this business, but you didn't deserve our time. You didn't deserve our attention. So just this really real, natural grudge that led to some of the best promos and segments ever on AEW television up until that point. Just incredible, realistic, gripping stuff. And what I love here, and I've talked about this before with AEW, as, I hate the terms, hardcores and casuals, that get used so much right now with AEW, but I'm going to use them here. So you have, a hardcore fan like me who understands so deeply this story because I was around, when Punk was still on the indies, when Kingston was on the come up. I saw all of this firsthand. But, if I'm a casual fan, I don't need to have been there and know that deep-seated history because it just makes logical sense that these two guys do not like each other. You give them a couple promo segments on TV where they're heated and, both of these guys are so good on the mic and both of these guys are so good at conveying their emotions that it immediately becomes a must-see match for me. And that's what's so great where AEW finds this balance of, putting stuff out there that any wrestling fan can watch and go, yeah, this is great. But that, pays homage or pays tribute, to long-term fans like me where I get so much more out of them than maybe that casual fan does. So it's great fan service all around. And it's something that AEW, in my opinion, does so well that, other wrestling promotions, specifically the WWE, do not do. And they need to. I watched the NXT TakeOver WrestleMania event, and Tommaso Ciampa did one of Johnny Gargano's moves in his match. And I could not believe the commentary because it was so alluding to it of, oh, we've seen that move before. They didn't even mention Johnny Gargano by name, even though he's not wrestling anywhere else. You own all of the footage of these guys teaming and doing those moves. It's insane to me that, the WWE feels the need to hide all of even their own history when, they have a fan base where if, you had a fan that watched the product 4 months prior, they saw Johnny Gargano on your television show. You're not promoting AEW by talking about him. He's not in AEW. It's baffling to me. But then, AEW does so well at preserving the wrestling history. And that, to me, makes a much more compelling product. So there's my rant about the difference between AEW and WWE right now. But this match itself, one of my favorite matches all year long. This is a match that did not need to go long, and it doesn't. It is short. It is action-packed. It feels like a fight. It feels like a grudge match. They built this match up as to these two dudes do not like each other, and that's conveyed immediately. CM Punk, normally makes his big, grandiose, entrance to Cult of Personality. That dude makes a beeline right down to the ring to go fight Eddie Kingston. And it's these little things that are so different that just sell you on the story that they're trying to tell. And the opening for this match is incredible. So Bryce Remsburg, who's the referee, which is perfect because they've established, that Eddie Kingston and Bryce Remsburg have, this long history coming up through the Chikara school together. And there's been a couple of instances throughout, AEW matches where Bryce Remsburg has, stopped the match for his friend Eddie's benefit because he couldn't defend himself, or, Eddie has seen Bryce get in the way and have to stop to avoid his friend getting hurt. That's cost him the match. So, I love that Bryce was the referee here. And so at the opening, he's separating these two guys that want to tear each other apart, and Eddie Kingston just throws the spinning back fist, the back fist of the future, knocks Punk out. Punk does such an amazing job of selling just being Rock. Eddie Kingston is tremendous here, just laughing at Punk that, he got one over on him. And then just, pounces on Punk and is just punching and biting and tearing at his ear and headbutting him, and all of these just disgusting, dirty street fighting tactics that make this match seem like a fight between these two guys. And Punk is so good here as well. So, he runs through his signature offense, but he adds all of these grudge match aspects into him. So he gets, the Shining Wizard in the corner. But normally he'd hit a bulldog out of there or the short arm clothesline, but he just starts throwing punches at Eddie. He hits the flying lariat from the top, but again, just goes right into these mounted punches from them, selling this fight. But the amount of middle fingers in this match is crazy. And again, just adds to the overall package where in between punches and fighting, these guys are flipping each other off and they're yelling at each other and they're talking trash. And Eddie Kingston's trying to gouge Punk's eyes and poking him in the eyes and trying to choke him and just all of this low down dirty stuff because it's a grudge match. Eventually they get out to the floor and Punk slams Kingston's hand on the ring steps, the hand that he used for the back fist in the opening. So again, super good there to start working the hand, and Eddie is amazing, punching with that hand and then selling it. Punk goes for the go to sleep on the floor, and Eddie slips out the back and throws Punk into the post, and Punk gets the blade, which he was probably in heaven with, because, if you saw Punk's, indie run, dude was a heavy bleeder all of the time, but then couldn't do it in the WWE. So opening himself up, I'm sure he was absolutely giddy about it. So, again, the blood just adds to the realism and the feel of this match. And again, it goes without saying, Eddie Kingston is incredible, working the cut with punches, biting it, wiping Punk's blood on his own face for, these incredible visuals. Something that I love about this match that makes it seem so reckless is at one point, Eddie Kingston's trying to pull like the ringside mats up, right? And to slam Punk on the concrete, and he can't do it. And I just, it's one of those things where like it's a botch, the mats were taped too tightly together, Eddie couldn't pull it up, but it just adds to this chaotic match of this wild man trying to tear apart the ringside area to inflict more damage. He goes for just a normal pile driver on the floor, and Punk counters to a back body drop. There's a point in this match which I'm a little torn on, where Punk goes on like this John Cena offensive run where he throws all of these flying shoulder tackles. He ducks a punch and hits the blue thunder bomb, right? The spinning out power bomb that Cena does. And the way that I take it is that this was just like natural offense from Punk. He's throwing his body, he ducks a punch, and he goes deep into his bag of a move sequence that he's taken so many times throughout his feud with Cena. But Punk kind of teases doing the "you can't see me" sort of thing. He ends up just flipping Eddie off instead, and Eddie flips him off back because of course they do. And then Punk, just drills him with mount punches. It was fine. It seemed a little weird and just like slightly hokey for the match that they were trying to tell. The other part that I didn't love about this, this Full Gear weekend, celebrated the anniversary of Eddie Guerrero's passing. I love Eddie Guerrero more than anybody. I'm wearing an LWO shirt, as a coincidence for this video. But Punk has talked about the influence that Eddie Guerrero had on him, wrestling earlier in Punk's career, and so on and so forth. So Punk busts out the three amigos in this match. Nothing wrong with that, but something that I find that ultimately AEW has a little bit of a problem with in general is this was like the third Eddie Guerrero tribute spot that we'd seen throughout the evening's card. And that's somewhere where I think their agents need to get a little bit tighter on of, okay, you guys are going to do this spot. Okay, you all love Eddie. Maybe you could do like different Eddie Guerrero tributes instead of just the three amigos and then teasing going up for a frog splash. Like, I don't know. Just by this point, and AEW pay-per-views are long, right? They run 4 hours plus the pre-show. So just lengthy marathons of shows. So, by the time you get to a match late in the card like this one, it's hard enough to stay amped for it. But then when you're seeing spots that you've already seen earlier in the night, it can take you out of it a little bit. So watching this match in a bubble now, it's fine. But in the context of the show and when I watched it live, it was kind of like, okay, another Eddie spot. So that's just, some criticism for AEW of something that they need to work on. But it still ends up working out okay here because Eddie cuts off the frog splash and just pummels the hell out of Kingston. More flipping off, more yelling, hits this big superplex, and it resets the match with both guys in opposite corners kind of coming to their feet and doing this stare down, and then meeting in the middle of the ring, and they go to the Don Fry, Takayama, pride fighting, punch trading spot. And again, I compare WWE and AEW so much, and, you might watch these videos and go, I have a clear bias, I'm an AEW fan, and maybe that's so, but the fact of the matter is it's because AEW has earned that from me, and WWE has sullied that, and went the opposite way. I've watched wrestling, my entire life. I've watched wrestling 30 plus years. And I've been a WWE fan, right? So don't get me wrong. I want to be a WWE fan. I will acknowledge when their stuff is great, and I will criticize when it's not so great, just like I'll do with AEW. But again, the difference is we've seen this spot so many times now on NXT, and you would have Mauro Ranallo like calling the Pride shout out, and you'd have all of these guys like I hate to say it, like you'd have like Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano, throwing all of these kind of like not so great worked punches at each other. But here you have two guys that feel like they actually hate each other, that have been punching each other in the face all match, and it just makes more sense that you would see that spot in this match than you would in practically every other NXT main event that you'd see them in. So we get this big punch out. Kingston hits the big, Toshiaki Kawada and Sagiri kick that he loves. And he makes this pivotal mistake where, he goes for like the GTS taunt that, Punk does, but he kind of does like a, beating off motion. I'll say, I don't know how else to clean that up. And it leads to him just getting crushed by Punk with the GTS. So getting, that egg on his face that, he taunted Punk. He was going to go for Punk's finishing move, and he paid for it. He ate a brutal knee. Punk pulls him up. Kingston goes for the back fist just like he did at the start of the match. But this time, Kingston has so little left. It doesn't catch Punk by surprise. Punk just ducks it. Kingston completely crumbles and collapses, selling the impact from the GTS and that he has nothing more left. Punk just gives him a bunch of like MMA-style elbows, a bunch of clinch knees, hulks him up, hits the GTS one more time. A little thing that I love is Punk sells the knee after hitting it, basically just being, I clubbed this dude with my knee so much that my knee hurts. It's enough for the 3 count. The post-match here is amazing as well, where, Punk kind of gives Eddie, and says like, you know what, you didn't have my respect, 17 years ago, 18 years ago, but you have my respect now, and extends the hand, and Eddie Kingston just bails on it. And that was the perfect ending. I would have been so mad if Eddie Kingston shook Punk's hand after the story they were trying to tell here. So again, I love that they didn't go that route. Kingston just slinks out of the ring, is pissed off that he lost, and walks back to the back. And this again, would carry on, through Kingston's next story and next big feud, which would be with Chris Jericho, that would revolve around respect and handshake. So just like how, this Punk feud was naturally set up when Kingston lost to Bryan Danielson, the ending here with the lack of handshake naturally just sets Kingston up for his next feud. That is great booking. Punk, of course, would go on from here to have his feud with MJF that I'm sure we'll talk about another time. But overall, they pack so much into the 11 or 12 minutes that this match goes. The build-up was fantastic. I was buzzing the day of this show to see this match, and it delivered. I loved it. Like I said, it's one of my favorite matches of the year. There's matches that are maybe better that you'll see later on this list, but this one is just a boatload of fun. Everything I love about pro wrestling with 2 of my personal favorite pro wrestlers ever. Because it's AEW, you can't really watch this one on proper demand yet, but if you're outside the US, you can find it on Fight TV. If you're inside the US, it might be on Bleacher Report. I'm not even quite sure what that is, but I know that they show AEW pay-per-views, but you can find it on DVD through Shop AEW, and one day I'm sure we'll be able to watch it on some sort of an AEW on-demand streaming service. You can subscribe to my channel here on YouTube so that you never miss a video. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Wrestling50, and please join me again next time as we continue to count down Pro Wrestling's Top 50.